You all for coming, and thank you to the organizers of this event today for putting on this discussion at a very important time about a very important topic. My name is Youssef Munayer. I'm the director of the Jerusalem Fund, which is in Foggy Bottom here in town, and we work on a number of these issues. But I wanted to begin by talking to you about a personal story and personal experience, and not only from the policy perspective, although we can discuss plenty of that as well. But the personal story is important because it has informed in very important ways the perspective in which I approach this issue, and here's why. I was actually born in a town called Lid. It is in Israel today. My family was there long before the State of Israel in 1948. We managed to remain inside the state after the Nakba, which was the mass depopulation of Palestine in 1947 to 1949, along with a slim minority of the native inhabitants of Palestine. We became Palestinian citizens of Israel. And the reason that this is so important, and I will get into this, is because what I think the problem here is on this issue between the United States and Israel, and this question of reciprocity, is really a difference, a fundamental difference in the understanding of and the definition of the concept of citizenship, what it means to be a citizen, and the relationship between the citizen and the state. So, as a Palestinian citizen of Israel, let me say that as a Palestinian citizen of Israel who was also grown up here in the United States, also an American citizen, so if you're keeping a list of identities, you now have Palestinian, Israeli citizenship, American citizenship as well. I've gained a perspective on what citizenship means here in the United States as an American citizen. I've gained a perspective on what citizenship means in Israel as a Palestinian citizen. And what I can tell you is that these are two extremely different experiences. In the United States, citizenship is really the gold standard for belonging in the state society. Once a person is a U.S. citizen, they are as equal and as privileged before the law as the President of the United States. This is not the case in Israel. And if one looks historically at the creation of the idea of citizenship in Israel, and not to get too academic, but I would recommend for you here a fantastic new book that has just come out on this period called Citizen Strangers by Shira Robinson that discusses sort of the creation of this legal concept of Israel and why it was created. Citizenship in Israel, as she puts it, was created as a category of exclusion, not as inclusion. And the reason that that's the case is because Israel is, or at least claims to be, a Jewish state. The problem that they have is that they attempted to establish this Jewish state in a space where a lot of people who were there were not Jewish, particularly before the mass depopulation. The vast majority of the people there were not Jewish. So once you set up a government there and you want to have a Jewish state, how do you then define the relationship between the state and the non-Jewish residents of the state? And how can they be citizens in a Jewish state and treated equally as normal, liberal, democratic norms would hold in a state when they are not Jews? And what they ended up doing was they created a category of citizenship. But that category of citizenship was not the gold standard that it is here in the United States. Of course, here in the United States, if you immigrate to the United States, we have a ladder that you can climb. You are a non-resident alien, then a resident alien. You go through the process. Eventually, if you fulfill all the requirements and fill out all the paperwork and pay all the really exorbitant fees, you can become a U.S. citizen. In Israel, citizenship is not the gold standard. Nationality is. And the interesting thing about this is that the Israeli Ministry of Interior, which is in charge of all of this categorization, recognizes over 100 different nationalities in the state. Not one of them is Israeli, because Israeli is not a nationality. It is a citizenship. However, the state offers privileges and rights to nationals, which are Jews, that it does not offer to other classes of citizens, which are primarily Palestinian citizens of Israel. So while they are able to make the claim that all citizens in Israel are equal as citizens, they are not equal in their relationship to the state. Hence, the state can discriminate against people regardless to the fact that they are citizens. Now, I'm only mentioning this to you as far as it relates to Palestinian citizens of Israel. This, of course, does not relate to the way Palestinians are dealt with by the state in the occupied territories or in refugee camps outside of historic Palestine. But getting back to the personal story, why this affects me so acutely. As a Palestinian citizen of Israel, I grew up here in the United States. I met a young lady in college who ended up becoming my wife. She is from Nablus, Palestine. And for those of you who are familiar, Nablus is, of course, in the West Bank, the occupied West Bank. She happens to be a British national, does not have problems entering this country as a British national, was in fact born in the United Kingdom. But legally, because of the laws in the state of Israel, and because of a law enacted in the early 2000s, she and I cannot reside together in the state in which I was born, because the state is concerned about what they call demographic spillover. In other words, they don't want more people of a particular ethnicity to be in the state. This law does not apply to Israeli citizens who are Jewish. But it does apply, of course, to people who are marrying Palestinian citizens, who are, of course, overwhelmingly Palestinian citizens of Israel. So this fundamental difference in the understanding of citizenship is really the problem here. And there is a great degree of discrimination, legal discrimination, institutionalized and non-institutionalized as well, that we can talk about for hours on end, and there's bookshelves worth of documentation of all of this. But this is the crux of it. And confronting this, again, from a personal perspective, we'll go back to my family story. My wife and I could not have met in the land where we're both from. We simply could not have. Our towns are 45 minutes apart. We met 7,000 miles away, and we were more likely to meet 7,000 miles away in college here in the United States than we were to be able to meet and get married in the land which we are both from, because of these very policies that create separation and distinction between people based on their background and ethnic origin and what have you. We were blessed last year with a young child. And today, and most recently, we confront a whole new set of challenges and questions about the identity and privileges and access that our child will have in the land that we are from. And this is not something that I would guess the vast majority of people in this room would ever have to confront in any situation anywhere else in the world. But because my wife is a Palestinian citizen from the West Bank, and because I am an Israeli citizen who is Palestinian, we have to think about how is our child's future going to be determined by how we enter into the land that we are from. My wife and I cannot travel together back to Palestine. We cannot legally use the same entry point, because I am a Palestinian citizen of Israel and she's a Palestinian citizen in the West Bank. Now we have to think about, how will our child be registered? If he enters with her, he has to have a Palestinian ID. Well, you'd think he has a US passport, so he should still be able to come into Israel to see the rest of my family as well. But as we know, unfortunately, the fact that one has US citizenship in Israel does not necessarily guarantee them the same rights and privileges for entry as US citizenship would have in many other places. So, what do we do? This is the question that we are confronting today in what should normally be a very sort of joyous process of planning a family trip back home, that is not supposed to have implications for identity and the political future of a child who's not really old enough to speak yet. But this is the reality that we must confront, and it all comes back to that fundamental difference. Here in the United States, citizenship is valued. I've never appreciated it as much as when I come back to the United States. And I was not born here. This is a place that I chose to be. I've never appreciated that citizenship as much as when I come back from a trip from Israel, where I'm confronted with the discrimination that Palestinian citizens of Israel are confronted with. And I return to the kiosks here at the ports of entry in the United States, and I hand over my U.S. passport, and I hear, "Welcome back to the United States, sir." I don't hear that anywhere else. As a U.S. citizen, I am treated before the law the same way that every other U.S. citizen is. If the state of Israel does not treat its own Israeli citizens of Palestinian origin with the same equality that it treats other Israeli citizens, how on earth can we expect that they would treat American citizens, foreign citizens of Palestinian origin with the same respect that they would treat other American citizens? So I think that this core problem really makes it impossible for us in any way to support the inclusion of the State of Israel into the visa waiver program unless there is a radical transformation in the way that not only it deals with U.S. citizens of Palestinian origin, but also its own citizens of Palestinian origin, and also, of course, Palestinian citizens as well. So I'll stop there. Thank you.